All right, welcome into the Mike James Show. I have a special guest here with me today, none other than the legendary voice of Monday Night Raw, WWE Hall of Famer, JR, Jim Ross. How are you doing today, JR?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you. I know I know you're extremely busy, man, and appreciate you taking time to join me today, and appreciate it. I'm one of your biggest fans. I've listened to you forever growing up as a kid, and being able to do this interview means a lot to me, and I thank you a lot for taking time to do this.
Sure, man. Sure. My pleasure.
So just get into here, basically. So if I remember correctly, you were born in Fort Bragg, California, correct?
That's right.
And so give me a little insight into JR growing up as a kid. What did you do? Just give us all a little insight about you growing up.
Well, I was the only child in a family that owned and lived on a 160-acre farm.
Yeah.
So a lot of my time as a kid was spent doing farm work. You know, we had an acre yard, a yard that was an acre size, huge. And my mother was so protective that my dad used the regular gas-powered lawnmower, and I used a push mower. So I guess it was good in the cardio or a little bit of exercise, but it sure got boring and tiresome. But you know, typical thing. You know, we had a working farm. Mom and Dad both worked out of the house. So after school, for many years, and certainly in the summertime, I was home alone, and I had a list of chores to do. So I learned responsibilities and the importance of keeping my word and my commitment, whatever they may be, by growing up on that farm. It also let me fall in love with radio, and you know, I wanted to be the voice of the St. Louis Cardinals. You know, I wanted to be a guy like Jack Buck or Harry Carey. As a little kid, I remember that very vividly. I didn't really want to do. I didn't have any other desires. I wanted to be I had other major work desires, but I wanted to be a broadcaster. So, you know, it was just it wasn't very fancy. We lived in a 4-room, not bedroom, 4 rooms, block house that used to be a dairy barn. We didn't have an indoor bathroom until I was in the 4th grade.
Wow.
I sound like I'm writing a country song here, but that's just how it was. You know, we lived in a working class family that was probably lower middle class at best.
Now, did I read this correctly? You were a 3-sport athlete in high school?
Well, I played football. Yeah, I played football and basketball in high school. I played baseball until we didn't have high school baseball, but
okay.
I played baseball until, you know, I got into junior high, you know, summer baseball, Little League, Babe Ruth, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I enjoyed sports. It's a big part of my life, quite frankly.
Yeah. Now, so, you know, getting into that too, what got you into wrestling? Like, what made you decide, hey, I want to do wrestling? Is there anything in particular?
I didn't decide that. It just happened, and it wasn't a long-term goal. I want to be a wrestling announcer. I want to work in the wrestling business. I was a fan, unmitigatedly a fan, which, like any other wrestling fan that's listening to this, at certain times you put up a little bit of bullying because people don't understand why you like wrestling, which is really a statement about their self-esteem and their perception of things more than anything else, in my opinion. So our fraternity at Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, we had to run a little foul of the dean of students, and we had to, as he said, resurrect our image. So we started doing a lot of fundraisers, and one of those fundraisers was promoting a pro wrestling card out of the wrestling office, territory office in Tulsa.
Yep.
So I promoted 2 events over a couple-year period, or over a year period, I guess. And Bill Watts, I got to know Bill Watts through the negotiations of our group to his company, and he just told me at the last one, he said, you know, if you ever want a job, I'll have one waiting on you when you're ready. So, you know, that was very intoxicating. I should have stayed. One of my biggest regrets is not staying and graduating. I think I did a semester. It was silly.
Yeah, but you know, it turned out to work out for the best, huh?
Oh yeah. So my book, Slobber Knocker, My Life in Wrestling, Mike, will probably answer all your questions in much more color and detail than I can here on the phone. But
yeah,
that book which is still number one. It's been number one for over a year. I'm thankful to say, very blessed. And I would suggest that it starts with, from the very beginning of my birth and growing up as a kid, through high school, through college, and through coming back to WWE and for the Austin and Rock match at WrestleMania when I had been sick and off the road for about 3 months. So it's a good story. It's a story of a fan that lives his dream. You find out a lot of good things in this book that, nothing replaces hard work, diligence, preparation, honesty. It's just so simple to be successful.
I'll definitely look into it. I want to read it. Like I said, I'm one of your biggest fans, so I definitely want to. I'm definitely going to look into it. I'm not a big book person, but I'll definitely look into it and have to buy a copy of it.
Well, buy the audiobook.
Oh, I'll definitely do that.
Buy the audiobook, and you can watch. You can do it while you're working out or while you're driving or whatever. But the audiobook has been very, very popular. I read the audiobook myself. Very challenging to do. But that's what if you're not an avid reader, then you might want to try the audiobook because it's getting good reviews.
I will definitely look into it. Now, I asked a couple of my friends. I put this out on Facebook the other day when I told everybody I was doing this interview. It said, does anybody have any questions you want me to ask JR? Now, I have a good friend of mine. He's actually from Norman. He wanted me to ask you, this is going back 30 years, so if you can't remember, it's fine. The Steve Williams, I want to say it might have been Hacksaw Jim Duggan. They had a barbed wire coal miner's glove match, I think he said it was.
No problem.
Do you remember anything about that?
Well, I remember Dr. Death Steve Williams and Jim Duggan, in addition to being great friends and having great respect for each other. They had a little run in early going. Bill Watts and I brought Dr. Death to Mid-South between his junior and senior year of college. So between Doc's junior and senior year of college at OU, he started wrestling on the territory, and he kind of learned as he went. He was in the road, wrestling guys that are better than him that could help teach him, and because guys like that, big, strong guys that really they can hurt you so easily and so inadvertently that they got to have great fundamentals because their strength and their power doesn't allow you to make too many second chances in that world. We had, when Bill Dundee came in to be the booker over time, we had a lot of those kind of matches where they were a lot of stipulations, a lot of, and the reason why is because you had a small roster. They wrestled every night, 7 nights a week. They had bookings. And so they're in the same towns multiple times a month. So you had to be able to change your matches up and tell a different story with different toys to play with, so to speak. So I'm sure they had that match. I'm sure it was bloody. I'm sure they beat the hell out of each other, but they liked that. Yeah. They enjoyed that.
Now, growing up as a kid, if I remember correctly, when you went into the Hall of Fame, it was Austin that inducted you. Am I right?
Yes, it was.
And vice versa, and it was you that inducted Steve also?
No, McMahon inducted Steve.
Oh, that's right.
And Steve inducted me.
What was your relationship with Austin? Just talk about that a little bit, because I remember
great. He's my friend. I mean, it's no different than anybody else having a good friend. It took a long time. I guess you'd probably say a fair amount of time for Steve to develop trust. Mm-hmm. That DTA thing, don't trust anybody, was kind of this mantra in real life, it seems like to me. And but once we got past the trust issues, I worked in the office. Sometimes the office is unfortunately positioned unfairly, I might say, oftentimes, and sometimes deservedly so, but they seem to be sometimes divisive with the talent, which is really, that'd be like a head coach being, at odds with his team. It's going to be hard to get them motivated if they don't believe in you and trust you. Yeah. So Steve and I developed that trust over the years. There's hardly a few-week period goes by that we don't communicate. So he's a great friend, and he's loyal and and steadfast. And he was the king of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, that was my favorite time. I definitely missed that.
Austin and McMahon were magic, and Vince was the best villain in the Attitude Era, in my opinion. He was very easy to dislike as a villain, and he played that role extremely well, very organically. And Steve was that blue-collar, take this job and shove it guy, whatever, the defiant one, and a lot of the fans could identify with that very readily because I'm sure in their lives they had a little bit of that same feeling that they'd like to be able to tell their boss to, shove it or whatever.
Now, do you have any funny stories talking about the Attitude Era that obviously as fans we wouldn't know anything about that happened behind the scenes?
Oh, I don't not anything I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, it was we were we're in business 24 hours a day, it seems like, and so there are all kinds of things that happen, but nothing, normal stuff, pranks and hurt feelings or boo-boo faces or whatever. It's no different than any other environment. Where you work, where somebody's listening to this works, there's that business environment has a personality, has a feel. And we had a very aggressive roster of guys that were hungry, they were in their prime, they were coming into their prime, they knew that shot was there to make a lot of life-changing money. And so they were very serious about their work, and especially the top guys. They really all worked to get better. I said this in my podcast this week. My podcast is on Westwood One, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, the Jim Ross Report, that, today's guys sometimes get complacent and they live in their very dangerous comfort zone because they believe that they're making as much money as they need, which is ridiculous. And they quit getting better. They find the comfort zone that keeps them booked, keeps them playing, keeps them on the roster, keeps them on the team, but they're not getting any better. And that's cheating themselves, their family, and the company as well. So we didn't have too much of that, I don't think, at all on the top side of the roster. Guys always wanted more. And that's what you want as an administrator, as a leader. You want your guys to continue to want more and to get better.
Now, was there like a moment, like you look back on, like a match, more say, from the Attitude Era that you look back on and you think really changed the way WWE, just changed the wrestling landscape in general?
Well, I mean, I would think that the Montreal Survivor Series in 1997,
the screw job,
where Brett and Shawn had their controversial match, I would say that was the jumping off point for the birth of the Attitude Era. So inadvertently, and as it worked out, that match and how it ended was very much a part of going that direction and becoming TV 14 and a lot more edgy. Yeah. So that was probably the start of the whole thing.
Now, thinking back on, because I was a big DX fan, as I know a lot of people were. How hard was it to sometimes? I know obviously you had to keep a straight face because of professionalism, but was it hard at times to actually keep a straight face with some of the things they did?
Yeah, some things were just incredulous. A lot of sophomore humor from time to time. I like that humor.
Gotta have fun, right?
But I was more challenged sometimes to not laugh at a guy like Jerry Lawler or something he said, or even Paul Heyman had a lot of funny one-liners. So, but I guess the Montreal Survivor Series, the proverbial screw job, is probably the jumping off point for the Attitude Era.
Now, speaking of good old Jerry, like I said before, I grew up listening to you guys for years upon years on TV. Talk about your relationship with Jerry.
Well, we're great friends. We're just like brothers, cousins, probably more accurate, because we don't talk every day. He's busy, as am I, but we text a lot. He and I are going to do some shows this year called the JR and the King Live, and where we're going to go on the road and do some Q&As. It's the first time ever that the voices of the Attitude Era have been on the stage together in this environment, take Q&A and tell stories, and we do the normal thing that we both enjoy, the autographs, the photos, and all that stuff with the fans. So we're looking forward to that, doing more of those shows. But we're pals. Now that my boy Baker Mayfield is playing in Cleveland.
Baker.
Jerry grew up as a kid in Berea, Ohio.
Yep.
So he's a diehard Cleveland sports fan, and so he and I talk about that a lot. So we've even talked about probably going to a game or two this year in Cleveland to see the Browns play. And I'm not a Browns fan. I am now because Baker's there.
So am I.
And Baker's a good kid. So
Yep.
But Walter and I we have a great friendship. We grew up in the same basic era. He's a little bit older than me, not much. Like the musical likes, sports, all that. We drove. We had a great time. Probably one of the best TV shows that could have been done was during the Attitude Era with a lipstick cam in the car, documenting Jerry and me on the road, much like they do on the Ride Along and things like that now on the WWE Network. But that we had some funny times, and we're having fun. We were two territory guys that finally made it to the very top of the mountain, and we were very fortunate and blessed to be able to stay there for a long time.
Just give us, I'm going to backtrack here for a second. Give us a bit of an insight into what your typical week looked like getting ready to do a Monday Night Raw show.
Well, I had a couple of different jobs. I was executive vice president of talent relations, meaning I managed the entire talent roster in all aspects of their life, oversaw it from our team's perspective. That includes everything, their schedule, medical, wellness program, their booking, being a good listener. Because I was the guy that sometimes would have to sit down and talk to a talent about their displeasure with creative, that type of thing. So, on Mondays, we generally when we got the company playing on Mondays, I'd fly to Raw. Or we go on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. And then on Tuesday, I would go to SmackDown. Lawler and I voiced the first SmackDown, then they moved Michael Cole in because I was simply too busy. Mm-hmm. I was doing Raw. I was doing all my administrative duties. It was a full-time gig, man. I would go on the road on Monday and Tuesday, get back to the office on Wednesday morning. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I would do my office work, including the payoffs, paying the guys, gals. And then on the weekend, we had live events. And because I booked those live events, I would interface with the agents every weekend. So there's no days off here in that deal. And people say, well, there's got to be a day off here and there. Well, of course there was here and there, no doubt. But as a rule, on a weekly basis, I was doing something work-oriented officially 7 days a week. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. I loved it. So I love the business. I enjoyed working with all the great people I did. I still do with WWE. But I was busy. But I like being busy. I like work. If you have a job that you really love, it's a blast.
It's not really work.
It's not really work. So that's kind of where I was. I was very lucky.
Now, a couple more things to talk about on the wrestling side of things, and we'll move on because I want to talk about Oklahoma football here in a minute. Now, this one hits hard for me. It hits home hard for me. Let's talk about Taker's final WrestleMania match. You were there. You were on headset for that. Talk us through. Because you were there, I just watched on TV. Talk about the emotions that went through it and just what you witnessed.
You mean you talking about the Undertaker Roman Reigns match?
Yes.
Well, first of all, that wasn't his last match, obviously, right?
Oh, that's true. Well, that last it was his last WrestleMania match, wasn't it? If I remember correctly.
Didn't he wrestle at WrestleMania this year? I guess John Cena.
Oh, that's right, he did, didn't he? I forgot. That part slipped my mind.
I came back to do this to WrestleMania. I came back and signed a multi-year contract with WWE about a week or two after my wife got killed in March of 2017, and I was a week, 10 days max out of that tragedy.
I'm sorry about that.
In Orlando for WrestleMania. So I thought it's a sign of knee-jerk reactions, an immature media, and people hiding behind their keyboard on the internet sometimes on social. That that was Taker's last match. You know, he Reigns beat him, and they brought JR back to call it and all that stuff. Well, you know, I told this on my podcast. I tell people, until the Undertaker says he's done, he's not done. It's that simple. It's that simple. Well, there's got to be more to it. No, there's not really more to it than that. I'm sorry. You got to create another controversy or create another conspiracy. It's not. And he tells you he's done. He'll be done. And don't you think that WWE, being the marketing giant that they are, would take advantage of the Undertaker's last match? I mean, my God, the Lakers had the farewell tour for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in every city that he played.
Yeah.
So I've always been. It's kind of the sensationalistic aspect of that is something else. Hey, Taker's working the Garden.
Yeah.
In New York City in July. So
see, I forgot because I actually didn't watch I couldn't watch WrestleMania this year, so that actually slipped. I totally forgot about that. So thank you for correcting me on that, by the way.
No worries, but he's the legend. There's nobody else like the Undertaker. His tenure alone on top makes him unique and unforgettable. No doubt about that. His body of work on the main events makes him extraordinary. No other superstar, Hogan, Austin, Rock, Brett, all those guys. Brett would come the closest because of his tenure there.
Yep.
But Taker's years are there in the WWE is they'll never be replicated because I don't think people with the style that they work nowadays, which shortens their careers lifespan. I don't know if you'll ever have somebody that will have over 2 decades of main events under their belt in that company. It's astonishing.
Yeah. So let's talk about Raw 25, which to me was one of the greatest things I ever saw. I thought it was awesome between the Garden and the Manhattan Center, right? It is the Manhattan Center, right?
Yep.
And what was that like? How was that on your side of it?
Well, it was like a little family reunion, class reunion, if you will. Saw a lot of guys I hadn't seen in a long time, and my life had changed a lot, as I mentioned earlier, with the death of my wife, and it was good for me to be around all those guys, and because for some of them that knew her and I, it was the first time they'd seen me since she left us. So that was the biggest thing for me. It wasn't the wrestling. The crowd was great there in that little building. I enjoyed that. I wish that we had done more work than we did. I felt like we were underutilized, Lawler and I. But be that as it may, you're a player, the coach calls plays, and you're a team guy, you run the plays. Simple as that. And all this, are you angry? You could do more. I'm not angry. Yeah. How the hell would I be angry at taking a first-class ticket to New York City, all expenses paid, for a couple of days, 3 days, whatever it was, and getting paid for it? I would have nothing to complain about. To me, it'd be kind of silly. But I think you get that feeling when you're a little older. When I was younger, more defiant, I'd be up in arms that I didn't do more work because of my ego.
Yeah.
But the bottom line of it is that I enjoyed the experience. The best thing for Raw 25 for me was seeing all my friends and experiencing the venue being really, really full and very, very responsive.
So now I want to ask this on a personal level. I personally want to get into the WWE as a ring announcer at some point in my life. What is the best possible way for me to get into that?
Well, you have to become good at it. So you're not going to go there to train. I'm not going to take an unknown guy with no proven skills in that world, if you don't have them, and hire you more than likely to be to get on the job training. Probably not going to happen. I say, never say never? Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. But you got to get experience. You got to get behind the mic, and there's a difference, as you well know, in doing an interview like this or doing your radio show, and then going in a ring and being a ring announcer.
Yep.
There's a different presentation, a different voice you use, a little different deal. So consequently, I would say try to find work. Try to find projects that you can, even if you got to volunteer. If there's any local indie groups around there, and hey, look, you're on the radio.
Yep.
You're gonna any promoter's gonna like you because you have the ability to make a mention of their event here, there, and yon, and where you're going to be and things of that nature. So you need experience. You got to get a reel. It's no different if you were going to try to get a job at WFAN in New York. What are they going to want? They're going to want an air check, right?
Yep.
If you got an air check, you're not in the game. So on the ring announcer, you got to have a air check on that as well. But of course, it'd be a video air check. They got to see how you look, how you dress, and how you look in your suit, and all those type of things. How you sound, all that. So appearance, sound, and they can't do that without a reel. So you got to build a reel, and then you get a chance then to kind of stick your toe in the water. But if you don't build a reel they can see, your chances are slim and none. As Nikolai Volkov said, slim just left town.
So, all right, so we'll get off of wrestling here now because I want to talk about Oklahoma. What made you become an Oklahoma Sooners fan?
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma. I was born in California, but my book tells all that. Really, it does. You're going to love the book. If you like my career, you want to be in a business, you like achieving things and setting goals. I've had a lot of roadblocks in my career. It ain't been easy. 3 bouts of Bell's palsy in a Southern accent is daunting. So you got this choice. You keep your jersey and figure a way to get back on the field and play, or you turn your jersey in and move your ass down the road to do something else. It's that simple. So, but I grew up an OU fan. Oklahoma's known for a lot of things. Some of them aren't good. The Greats of Wrath and John Steinbeck's novel, et cetera, et cetera. And there'll be some young fans that, who the hell is John Steinbeck, which is a testament to their defiance and ignorance as far as learning history and reading. We don't read anymore much, it doesn't seem like. But nonetheless, I grew up an OU fan. They're successful. They're one of the winningest programs in the history of college football. Mm-hmm. So we're native Oklahomans. We're proud of our team and the success they've had. I live 3 miles where I'm sitting right now from the stadium. I love it living in Norman. I love the college town life. It wasn't an option for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else but to be an OU football fan, and I don't say that begrudgingly whatsoever.
I was down there once. Last February I was down there for a couple of days, and I was just in awe. I was like, just thinking about it, I was like, wow, it's just amazing. Because believe it or not, yeah, I'm in upstate New York, but I love Oklahoma Sooners. I love the Sooners. They're fun to watch. My short football career, my own, I said I wanted to play for Stoops. That was my dream. And then I had a knee injury, which curtailed my dream, but I stuck to him. I loved watching Peterson run through everybody. I still love watching Peterson run through everybody. But it's just, to me, I was in amazement.
It's a great atmosphere. It's a feel-good opportunity. It's multi-generations of fans that come to the games. They sell out every game, 86,000 or something like that, 88. Big stadium just got renovated. So it's a great program. I'm friends with the coaching staff, the athletic director. I'm privileged enough to be on the OU sideline with that black hat on more often than not. They take good care of me, and they're like family. They're like family. They really are. And the football team, after last year's tragedy, they were right there, man. They were right there with me every step of the way. And so those are the things that people don't hear about much. Mm-hmm. That makes it special and makes loving that team very easy.
Now, you touched on Baker. Let's talk about, before we get into Baker himself, what was going through your mind in that Georgia game? I don't know about you, but I have a hole in my wall from my phone almost going through it from watching from that semifinal game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was there, and it was tough. Great game as a fan. If you don't have a dog in the hunt, just want to watch a football game, that was a dandy to watch, I'll tell you. And it's heartbreaking. We were close getting to the finals, and so it's just, hey, it's one of those games, man. It's just it's a roller coaster. You live and you die how your team does, and it looked like we had a chance to win, and then the Georgia outplayed us in the overtime and got the win. So You know, it doesn't. It's not an embarrassment to make it to the Final Four of college football and lose to a real good team. Mm-hmm. All 4 teams are really good. So I was frustrated. I thought we were better than the outcome, but nonetheless, Georgia deserved to win, and they outplayed our ass in the last quarter, or last overtime, and in the latter part of the game overall. So, you know, I've been there before. I've been there for the exaltation of beating teams and winning bowl games and winning national championships, beating Texas, beating Oklahoma State, beating Ohio State in Ohio, all those great things. But nothing. It's just part of the game. It's part of our life.
Yep.
Every day is going to be a great day. So again, you can fold your tent and leave, or you can ride it out. And you know, I rode it out, and I'm ready to go for another season.
I can't wait. We're all, like 2 months away now? Just over 2 months away from kickoff?
September 1st, the home opener.
Oh, I'm hoping to make it down for a game one day. That's my goal. So let's talk about Baker. Now, obviously, he's a great leader. Were you surprised he went number 1 overall? I know I was a little bit. Not that he went 1 overall, but just Cleveland?
Well, I was a little surprised. I thought, because we didn't know what Cleveland was going to do, you know, a lot of people thought they might take Barkley, the running back, out of Penn State, and then pick a quarterback in their 4th pick. So they had number 1 and number 4. Mm-hmm. But they were so sold on Mayfield that they didn't want to risk him going to some other team, hence why they drafted as they did. But, yeah, I was a little bit surprised he went in the very first pick. I was not surprised he went in the first round and in the top 5 of the first round. So he's exactly what they need. He's a spirit that is undeniable. He's always overachieved. He was a walk-on at Texas Tech, Big 12 Freshman of the Year, no scholarship.
Yep.
Walks on at OU to compete against the incumbent who had just been named the MVP of the Sugar Bowl in a victory over Alabama, and Trevor Knight. So he comes to OU with no scholarship, with an incumbent quarterback in place, and he wins the job. So he's always overachieved. He reminds me of when I broadcast Falcon football in the early 90s when Brett Favre was a rookie. He's got that same personality, that same infectious smile, and he's the kind of guy you're willing to go to battle with. So I think, hey, look, I'm not saying he's going to resurrect Cleveland next year or this year or whatever, but in the long haul, he should be their guy.
See, I'm a Jets fan. I don't admit that out loud very much. Don't like to admit that anyways. But being an Oklahoma fan and a Jets fan, saying, oh, we're in the top 5. Well, we were 6, but then we traded 3 second-round picks away for Sam Darnold, which was stupid. I was hoping somehow Baker was going to fall to my Jets, and we were going to have the Broadway Baker story, and then he went to Cleveland, and now I'm stuck with Sam Darnold. I'm not very happy about that. But I have no choice. I have no say in the matter. I have to live with it.
Well, you know, you never know about the draft. Everybody's got the draft. Each draft has a different personality, and sometimes that personality changes on the fly. So, you know, Baker's in a good place. They got nowhere to go but up. He's not intimidated by their recent history. He's ready to go. So I'm excited to watch the journey. A lot of those OU kids are in the pros now, thanks to Bob's run and Lincoln's. It's just getting started. Mm-hmm. So it's a good. My NFL fandom basically is not team driven. When my wife was alive, we were nothing but Steelers because that's where she's from, and I adopted the Steelers as my NFL team. I still like the Steelers for sentimental reasons, but there's so many OU guys that are playing major roles on NFL teams around the country that I'm a fan of a lot. That's why the Sunday ticket comes in handy. I can watch all my boys play in their games, you know, with a click, so to speak. So yep. It's a fun time to be a football fan. I say that all the time in my podcast. It's a fun time to be a wrestling fan, and I believe it is. But for me, with all these OU guys in the NFL, I'm even more looking forward to watching football this fall.
So one more thing here we'll touch on quickly. Kyler Murray. he obviously just got drafted this week, 9th overall by the Oakland A's. What do you think he's going to play one more year for Oklahoma? Because if I remember correctly, I just overheard that the A's are going to allow him to play one more year if he wants.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I think that was the plan all along. It wasn't a surprise that Kyler Murray was a great baseball player when he got to OU. Lincoln knew that he was going to play baseball, and he also knew he was really good. So that whole matter has been addressed. It's not a surprise here. And the plan right now, as I understand it, is for him to play this fall and then kind of play it by ear. That would tell me probably he's got 1 year at OU in him, and then he'll move on to his money. People wonder, well, I wouldn't do that. I'd play if I could be quarterback at OU. I'd just stay and play quarterback. You can't ignore the millions of dollars that they're going to pay him to come play baseball.
Yeah, you can't ignore $4.5 million.
Guys go to college to get an education, and more specifically to prepare themselves for adulthood and life after college. I'd say that he's done that very well with his, success in baseball. He had a good season for the Sooners. He got drafted high. He's a 4.3 guy. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a great outfielder. He hits with power and an average. He's just a natural athlete. His family are loaded with great athletes. His dad was a great player at college, Texas A&M. So the plan might be a surprise to some outside Oklahoma, but we knew all along that he was a great baseball player, and this opportunity could come up for him. It came up better than a lot of people thought, being the 9th player overall picked. You got to go with the money, so I'm assuming that he's going to play this year, and then you'll probably be seen thereafter on the diamond.
All right, JR, I thank you again for joining me, and I appreciate your time, and I hope all goes well, man.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.